I never really thought of it that way. You know, I actually come from the left, and so I, previously being in Libertarians, so I still have some of those media outlets available to me. And I've actually heard people talk about, oh no, that's wrong. The oil companies fund all the contrarian stuff. But at the end of the day, the oil companies, they have a lot of money, but they don't have the ability to tax the people of the American people and take all that money and pick who they want to fund, which is basically limitless. I mean, they have hundreds of billions of dollars, but when it comes to the American economy, I think we're going to have to learn what the next number after trillion is when it comes to taxation and debt. So
you know, that's an absolutely correct and unfortunately a very, very sad statement. So. Well, Phil, let's switch gears a little bit now and bring it a little bit closer to home, something that's actually going to be a constitutional amendment on our November 2010 ballot. The hometown democracy, I mean, we've got an overhead we're going to put up about this. You know, right now Florida is governed by these comprehensive land use plans. They're done by region. And right now, elected representatives in those regions can actually change those land use plans. There has been you know, criticism from certain circles that a lot of times these elected officials are in the back pockets of developers and et cetera, et cetera. And you know, I certainly, I think like a lot of folks, I try to be sensitive to the environment and enjoy unspoiled areas and things along those lines. But at the end of the day, I think the thing that is concerning to me about this is that it presupposes that there is a person or persons or group of persons who have the wisdom to be master planners, who have, you know, the wisdom to say what's a good development and what isn't. And you know, the slogan of the group that's really promoting this hometown democracy is that mismanaged growth destroys. And you know, for me this is a difficult one because, you know, some folks, you know, see something that's a desecration of nature. Other people might look and see a great building or a great architectural design for something. It's always interesting and easy, perhaps, to use the power of government to your own ends when you're not paying any consequences for it. I mean, take example, somebody maybe buys a stretch of property, they want to build their dream home or something like that. Well, now suddenly they're not allowed to do it because, you know, a group of citizens around them says that they don't want to have to look at their house, or they have, you know, they enjoy the sunset and they can't see it if this person builds a house. That gets to be a very, very fine line there, and I think not an appropriate use of government to make those kind of decisions.
it's a bit of a slippery slope, and yeah, this whole thing, I think I need to sit down and read this because it's a little confusing to me because a lot of it, you know, it sounds good, democracy and hometown, and it sounds like it's, oh, the voters make the choice, but me, myself, I've been to city council meetings. I've heard people talk about zoning, and I'm a pretty smart guy, but I don't think I'm really smart enough to really make zoning judgments. And I'm politically astute. I'm not your average voter. A lot of times they don't pay attention as much, so I'm not exactly sure how this is going to improve things. I think it might be something where we're trying to put things on the ballot to create chaos.
Yeah, and you know, again, at the end of the day, obviously, I mean, our nation is founded on the concept of private property rights. You know, and now I realize there has to be some give and take with that, but the idea that a group of citizens could vote something down because they don't like it is to me just not very American, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I've been around some of these things where you know, groups of citizens will speculate what the traffic flow, the increased traffic flow of an area might be like, or what the level of congestion might be like, and things along those lines. And it's very easy for them to give a thumbs down to something or whatever because they've not been an entrepreneur or a developer or somebody who's rolled the dice, who's, you know, put their capital and their assets into something. It's very easy to say no when you don't have any skin in the game. And I think that that's one of my major concerns, you know, with issues like this.
Well, and that goes into the fact that we really do already have those avenues. People, they don't want a prison or a junkyard or a Walmart. If they really are that up in arms, they go and they vote on it because it's in their backyard. But if we put everything on the ballot, then you will have people just deciding, Yeah, that cashier at the Walmart was rude to me. I'm going to vote against Walmart.
Yeah, or we don't like Walmart, you know, or whatever. Yeah, it really does become kind of a mob mentality. And of course, a pure democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what to have for dinner. So we do need to be very aware of that as well. For those of you that are enjoying this dialogue and maybe want to learn a little bit more about the Libertarian Party, a little bit more about our platform, what would life be like if libertarians were actually running government, you can do a couple of things. First of all, continue to tune into the Libertarian Perspective. Airs Wednesdays at 7 o'clock here on Comcast Community Access Channel. Also airs at other various times in the broadcast schedule, so as you're channel surfing, if you see us, pause and listen to what we're up to. The other thing you can do is visit us on the web. The National Libertarian website is www.lp.org. And here in Jacksonville, it's www.jaxlp.org. You can also give us a ring, 904-731-5656, 731-5656. We'll be happy to send you out some information at no charge, so you can learn a little bit more about us. The other thing you can do is get involved locally. As I mentioned, you know, Phil is the regional representative for the Libertarian Party of Florida. There are monthly meetings, and in fact, there's a meeting just coming up here in a couple of days. It'll be Thursday the 14th, and that's going to take place around 6:30 at night.
Yes, it will. Typically, we meet every third Thursday at the Golden Corral across from Tinseltown on Southside Boulevard, but due to some scheduling conflicts, we've moved it up a week, so it'll be 2 days from now.
Okay, fantastic. So we hope to have a great turnout for that. Well, Phil, we're actually kind of coming close to the end of the show, so we're going to pick up the pace here a little bit. We do have an overhead we're going to put up on what we've called Jacksonville's Dr. No. And Jacksonville's Dr. No is Councilman Clay Yarborough. The Dr. No references around the reference to Ron Paul, the Texas congressman who frequently is the only lone dissenting voice voting against massive spending bills, so he's known as Dr. No. And Clay Yarborough, you know, has principles which I think libertarians and I think a lot of citizens relate to, which is avoiding debt and having private support for a lot of social services and cultural events. And it's been interesting that there's actually an article in today's paper about VestCorp calling for more assistance from the city government to help some apartment buildings that they converted, having already gotten money from the city government. And Clay Yarborough is, I think, correctly questioning whether that's the role of city government to help subsidize something like that. And amazingly enough, Councilman Art Shad in there is basically saying we haven't spent enough downtown and we have to spend and spend and spend and spend until it hurts.
I believe he thinks that us spending $4 billion like they did in Kansas City is what we should do.
Yeah, and my advice to Councilman Shad is if he feels that strongly about that, he's got a checkbook and he can go ahead and write as many checks as he wants to, but that doesn't give him the right to sucker the rest of us into having to support something like that. Our next overhead, Phil talks, just going to talk very briefly about Alex Snitker, Libertarian candidate for U.S. Senate. We're very excited about his race, and as I mentioned, we hope to have him on a future broadcast. His issues include things like the fair tax, having a balanced budget, non-interventionist foreign policy, which is interesting because he's a former U.S. Marine. He's also one of the people who signed on to the 10th Amendment Pledge, which basically affirms the fact that our federal government has enumerated powers and not blanket powers. So we're going to look forward to having him on a future broadcast.
And he's considered the Tea Party and the 912 candidate as well. I just want to put that out there.
Appreciate that. And then last but not least, as we are coming down to the end of the hour, our government abuse of the month is around the TSA and the new terror rules. You know, we had this unsuccessful attempt to this terrorist act over Detroit. We had the immediate reaction from the Obama administration that, you know, the systems worked as planned. I'm not sure exactly what was meant by that. Fortunately, they retracted some of that. But now there's no getting up to use the washroom or anything in the last hour of international flights. You can't have blankets or magazines or anything along those lines. There's some people that are even speculating that the TSA may start to ask people to hold the underwear. Got to go commando when you fly so they can get a better visual view of you. Are you looking forward to your next plane trip, Phil?
No, in fact, I recently visited Ohio by driving there because I think I might start a lead underwear company in response to this new regulation.
We're going to have to leave it there because we are coming down to the end of the hour. Thanks again for your time, Phil. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next broadcast. Again, for those of you that have enjoyed this broadcast, check out the web, www.lp.org, www.jaxlp.org, 904-731-5656. Look for us every Wednesday, 7 o'clock here on Comcast. We'll see you next time on The Libertarian Perspective.